Hello, friends. Today is all about the garlic harvest. It's early June and they're ready to go. Now, a lot of times people ask me, how do you know when garlic is ready to pick? Well, here it is. It's pretty obvious that these are ready. They're falling over the stalks. They're browning up. If I don't get these out of the ground soon, then the heads are going to start to break apart. So this is the time that you need to pick them right now. Now, I used to grow my garlic in the ground, but I found this raised bed that I bought. It used to be an old redworm raising bed. It's heated, and I don't use it for that purpose anymore. I just stick it out here on sawhorses. It's the perfect height to garden in my old age. I don't have to bend over. I can just, reach out and get to work. Now, I'm just taking a trowel, and I'm just digging up each head. And it's always a surprise. I picked one head the other day. I must have picked the best one because I thought my harvest was going to be much better than it is. But I have lots of garlic and there'll be plenty for the year, but I'm a little disappointed on the size of the heads. You won't be able to really get a good look until the end of this video when I have them laying out on a table. You can kind of see. They're nice, but they're not nearly as big as they were last year or the year before. Now, I thought I had done well with this. I always have a concoction of potting soil. I used my own compost. I sprinkled bone meal last fall. Added chicken manure or chicken shavings for mulch off out of the chicken coop, so it would just kind of liquid fertilize as I watered the garlic. And I really thought that there was just going to be big heads this year. But in the end, it was an okay harvest, but not nearly as good as it usually is. Now, while I'm showing all this action shots of me picking all this garlic over the next few minutes, I want to discuss the full cycle of garlic planting to harvest. Now, you do need to plant in the fall of the previous year so that you can get a winter cycle because they need to go through a winter dormancy. So I plant in usually September or early October. I mend the soil, get it all ready to go. Now, in the past, I've went and I bought all the fancy heads of garlic, all different varieties, and they didn't do well here. But what I do is I just simply go to the grocery store. I get the soft neck garlic varieties that they sell just on the counter, and those are what I use. I buy maybe 8 heads because there's many bulbs in each head, or many cloves in each head, excuse me, and then I just break them apart and I plant them individually. I try to pick the biggest cloves to plant. And then if I have extras, I'll put them in. But the bigger the start, the bigger the bulb usually is. So it's simple. You just plant them, and then you mulch them in, make sure they're good and watered, and then they'll come up, they'll sprout, and then as soon as winter hits, they'll just kind of sit there and they just stay green all winter. They're a little worse for wear, but you just keep them moist, and then you just wait till spring, and then when it warms back up, they just start growing again. And they just keep on growing until they get to the phase where you saw where they're all falling over. And that's when you pick them. And again, if you don't pick them at that age and you leave them a couple of weeks, then they'll start to try to regrow. And then the heads will break apart and the cloves will start sprouting. And then it won't last. It won't store. And you could eat them fresh, but you won't be able to keep them very long. Now, I still have garlic hanging in my pantry from last year. It's still good. It's pretty amazing that you can have garlic 365 days a year, at least in my climate. But again, I'm digging through this, and I'm just kind of looking, and I'm not real pleased with what I see. I think when you look at the end, you'll probably think it's an okay harvest, but I'm not too pleased right now. There's some bad words flowing through my brain as I'm looking through these that it's like, holy moly, I can't believe it. Should have been much better, but I've got to rethink my concoction, and I'll get back into it and make sure next year is a better harvest, or at least hope for a better harvest. So simple to harvest. Like I say, I love just being able to stand up here, not have to bend over, and just really loose soil. The potting mix is very loose. I'm just digging them out. I am getting closer to the elephant garlic, so you'll see the bigger leaves in the back. I've got 2 or 3 elephant garlic that I planted that somebody gave me last year, and I used most of it for cooking, but then I kept a few to plant just to see how they do. And they did okay, but still not the greatest. But lots of garlic, though. I mean, for my family of 3 people at this point, we're going to have plenty of garlic, and I'm not too worried about it, but I'm a little disappointed because peeling garlic's a pain in the butt, and it's nicer when you just have bigger heads. so you have bigger cloves to use. And this way, you just have to use the smaller ones. But it all tastes good, and it'll all work out in the end. I'm just digging through here to make sure that I didn't miss any, and then I'll do a final dig through at the end to make sure I didn't. But I always miss a few. They'll start sprouting again. That's an okay one, but nothing great, unfortunately. But garlic is one of those easy to grow vegetables. Anybody can do it, but you do have to plant it in the fall so that it has that winter cycle so you can harvest it. Now, I used to harvest it in early July, but it seems like every year it gets earlier. Last year was around June 1st that I harvested, and this is around June 8th was when I picked this. So it was maybe a week later than last year, but still it's pretty early in the season to be picking garlic here. A lot of people, they don't pick them quite so soon, but in Utah Zone 5, that's what we got here. So just finishing up the last few and then checking through to make sure I got it all before I get into the elephant garlic. So here I'm digging into the elephant garlic, and as you can see, it is bigger, but it's still not, I wouldn't call it an elephant, maybe a baby elephant garlic. It's about as good as I can do this year, but oh, well, you win some, you lose some, and not every year you can have a great harvest of every vegetable. And I have planted in this same bed for multiple years and was doing better, so I thought I'll do it again. Well, maybe I'll switch to the other side where I've got the onions this year and give this soil a little rest. But we'll see. It all depends on what space I have to plant, because a lot of times I get ahead of myself and I plant something that I didn't plan on, and then I kind of have to readjust. But there's another baby elephant garlic. So, oh well, it is what it is. But it's fun, and it's one of the first crops of the year, and it's just a simple crop. And again, you can eat it all year long. Most crops you cannot store that long, but garlic, if you have it in a nice, cool, dry place, dark place, you'll last all year. Some of it'll go, dry out, but the oils in the garlic keep it pretty good, and it's still tasty. It's still, when I use them now, the ones from last year, they're still totally edible. So here I'm using one of my harvest baskets. It's the wire meshed basket that I can use to wash the vegetables, and it's going to be kind of full, so I can't do a complete wash, but I'll start with washing through the basket, and then I'll take them out and spray them individually. But it's kind of nice to have a harvest basket. It's easy to carry stuff with, and again, these are designed so that you can just hose stuff off, and then you can just leave them in there and let them air dry if you want. But with garlic, you got to leave them outside to cure for a few days. So I'm going to be hosing these off preliminarily, and then spreading them out on this picnic table. Hose them off again, and then let them sit in the sun for a few days to dry out and cure. Here I'm laying them out, and just before I wash them again, just to make sure they're good and clean, because once you've dried them, you don't want to ever get them wet again. So you start out, it's okay to get them wet, because that's where they were in the ground. They were in the ground moist, and when you pick them, it's just fine just to clean them off, and then spread them out so they can dry on the picnic table. And then because the table's wet now, after this, I'm going to move them around several times during the day, just to allow the table to dry, and so there's no moisture being held in underneath any of these. But I want to get them spread out so that they're not, they're touching, but they're not, they need some air space. Now the weather is getting really, really hot. It's, up to 100 degrees or even 103, 104 the next couple days. So I don't want to leave these out too much. They're getting some sun during the day, but they're also shaded by the trees so that they're not getting full sun all day long to dry. But again, I will move these around so that there's no moisture left on the table underneath. But yeah, it's a pretty good harvest. I mean, there's lots of garlic there. If you notice, there's not the big heads, but they're okay. As we take a pan down here, and again, a lot of smaller little heads, but they're all good. All taste the same, regardless of how big they are. But I'll shoot for better next year, and that's all I can do. So after leaving these on the table for a couple days, I'm going to pull them up and put them back in my harvest basket and carry them in the house. And my wife is out of town with a sick relative, so she's not here to braid my garlic. So I don't know if the garlic will be able to be braided by the time she gets back. But there's a look at what happened last year. This is how we store the garlic generally. And as you see on the right, that was the year before. And then this is last year's garlic. And I'm hoping that we can braid this year's garlic. But anyway, that's the end of this video. I appreciate you watching. If you like this kind of content and want to continue to follow me living my best rural life in the city, please subscribe to my channel, like, share, and comment. And I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.